Hi, everybody. I'm Butch Stearns. He's Kerry Byrne. This is Cold Hard Football Facts on Football Nation. Adrian Peterson. We know we're watching history here, but the numbers tell us we're really watching history.
Yeah, well, we all know that Adrian Peterson has a shot, everyone's talking about it, to challenge Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing record of 2,105 yards. But, you know, we value here at the Cold Hard Football Facts efficiency over volume. And right now, we say Purple Jesus is the second coming, Butch, of Jim Brown. He has a chance to match probably the greatest single season by the greatest running back in history, and that's Jim Brown in 1963 when, like I said, maybe the greatest season ever. And it's scary, Butch, how close those numbers are. I mean, look it up and down the board. 2 attempts difference, 51 yards difference, almost the exact same yards per attempt, 1 touchdown difference. And this isn't just some Joe Schmo. This is, again, the greatest running back.
Before those numbers go away, in 1963, they played 14 games, and Peterson's done 14
Well, that's the other thing.
So right.
Through 14 games for each player. I mean, that's a pretty darn good season. That would have been a 2,000-yard season easily for Jim Brown in the 16-game era.
So that's remarkable. So as we're watching Adrian Peterson do this, you now start looking at the best rushing seasons by there. And again, Peterson and Jim Brown start to come up. It's remarkable.
Yeah, well, we looked at the greatest rushing teams of all time, and obviously one great running back makes all the difference. And no coincidence that those 1963 Browns are the greatest rushing team in football. Now, Jim Brown averaged 6.4 yards per attempt, but as a team, 5.7. So the other running backs were good, but not nearly as good. I mean, go down to number 2, the 49ers, number 3, the 63 Chargers, the same year as the Browns, but in the AFL, Barry Sanders and the 97 Lions. And then we get really a microscopic difference at Adrian Peterson and the 2002 Vikings. So again, we're talking one of the greatest rushing seasons by a player of all time, and that's led the Vikings to become one of the greatest rushing teams of all time.
So the one stat that people point to when they talk about the greatest runner of all time, and they want to argue against Jim Brown and go with Walter Payton, or even Emmitt Smith, some guys do, or even Barry Sanders in his short career. The one thing they say is, well, look at Jim Brown's yards per attempt when it comes to rush. And again, when you look at Peterson here, it's remarkable.
It is pretty close. Now, this is why Jim Brown, to me, is the greatest football player of all time. One, just to dominate the league like he did, but, 5.2 yards per attempt over the course of a 9-year career when he was the bulk of the offense. Everyone knew he was getting the ball. The only player close is Mercury Morris, who, by the way, only carried the ball but barely qualified for official records. Adrian Peterson, right there on the list, ahead of Gil Sayers, number 4 all time. This is the only 4 running backs in history qualifying for NFL records. That means a minimum 750 attempts, Butch. The only 4 running backs in history to average more than 4 yards per attempt. It's pretty remarkable. I mean, we are watching history when we watch Adrian Peterson run the football.
So let me ask you a final question about Adrian Peterson. In this day and age, with passing prolific and all the things geared towards passing, if Adrian Peterson keeps up this pace for 3 or 4 more years, does he go down as the greatest running back in the history of the NFL?
Well, you have to wonder. I mean, there's an argument to be made there. To me, the bigger thing, though, is that we talk about it all the time, is it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. How does it impact your team? Jim Brown in 1963, the greatest rushing team of all time, they went 10-4. They had a nice season, but they didn't even make the postseason. A lot of these great rushing teams of all time, we ran through the list, didn't even make the postseason. The year with Barry Sanders we talked about, I think they went 9-7, lost in the playoffs. The Vikings are a question mark to get to the playoffs. So if you're looking at a historic passing team, they're probably one of the best teams in football. They probably win almost all their games. You look at a great rushing team, what does it matter at the end of the day? So it's fun to watch. It's great to watch a great talent like that. But it's always been this way. The great passing teams are the ones that win, not the great rushing teams.
Purple Jesus. Check the numbers. Even Tim Tebow has to bow to Adrian Peterson.